Yes, well, good evening. Now, look, I'm not being melodramatic when I say to you tonight, I am broadcasting in what are almost unprecedented circumstances. Your response to what I had to say last night about Trump, Biden and the voting system in America has provoked an overwhelming response. In fact, to this hour, in fewer than 12 hours, there have been almost 1 million views of this material on YouTube. My Facebook page, Alan Jones Australia, will direct you to YouTube. However, there are powerful interests who, while they can't prevent me from saying these things, want a worldwide audience to not hear them. As you know, at least in the latter stages of the campaign, things that the American voter should have known and heard were censored by powerful interests in the media. As we now know, the polls were wrong, the headlines were wrong. Was this designed to collapse the Trump vote? Now that we know that almost half of America rejected these unrelenting, ruthless and dishonest attacks on Trump, are we entering the next phase? Nothing negative about Biden to be said or reported. It appears on published figures that 75 million people have voted for Biden and 71 million for Trump. Americans are entitled to know, is this an accurate reflection of the will of the people? Stay with me. I'll come to that in a moment. Did 75 million Americans reject Trump's phenomenal achievements with the economy? I think not. Before coronavirus, Trump had created 7 million new jobs in America. The average unemployment rate was lower than that of any administration in the history of America. African American youth unemployment was at an all-time low. African American poverty had declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women was the lowest in 70 years. But 75 million Americans chose Biden. The same Biden involved in awful scandals associated with his son, the unanswered allegation that his son consulted his father about a planned venture with a Chinese oil company, corroborated by a partner in the deal. But Joe Biden has said he never discussed the international business activities of his son. The full story is completely ignored by mainstream media organisations. Biden has denied any connection with senior Communist Party officials over his son's business interests. But the New York Post revealed details of the son's business deals in China after his father introduced his son to senior Communist Party officials. In fact, the son flew with Vice President Biden to China on Air Force Two in December 2013 for an 8-day visit with senior Communist Party officials. All this is clear from email records. The Biden camp doesn't deny the authenticity of the emails taken from the hard drive of a computer left at a Delaware computer repair shop. But of course, Biden doesn't have to deny. He's being protected by the media. But in the final debate, Biden denied he had any international dealings involving his family. Who was telling lies? Then there's the business about Ukraine. His son, who doesn't speak Ukrainian, knows nothing about energy, was thrown out of the army with a drug problem, but gets $50,000 a month with a Ukrainian company which is being investigated for corruption. The father visits the Ukraine, and next thing we know, the Ukrainian prosecutor is gone. Aren't we allowed to say that when Biden was vice president to Obama, he pushed for the sacking of the Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin by threatening to pull $1 billion in loan guarantees? Imagine if this was Trump. None of these issues raised by the media with Biden. None of them denied by Biden. Biden doesn't have to worry about denying or answering. He's being protected by media, mainstream and social, and the big tech giants. No one fact-checked Biden when in the final debate he claimed that the former New York Mayor Giuliani was, quote, being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian. Everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States, unquote. But if Trump can't prove election chicanery, then he is discredited. Biden can't prove the Russian allegations, but the media let them run. In an excellent piece 2 weeks ago, Chris Mitchell in the Australian newspaper quoted Glenn Greenwald, who won a Pulitzer Prize in 2014, writing, and I quote, "Is there a single journalist willing to say with a straight face that they believe the emails relating to the Bidens are either fabricated or otherwise altered, but the Bidens just aren't saying so?" He says, "There has to be some limit to your willingness to go into bat for them," unquote. As Chris Mitchell, former distinguished editor of many News Limited mastheads, wrote, Greenwald sticks with the facts. Well, argues Greenwald, I quote, The broad outlines of this story have been known. Hunter Biden was paid a very large monthly sum by Burisma, at the same time that his father was quite active in using the force of the US government to influence Ukraine's internal affairs, unquote. Mitchell writes that Greenwald was, quote, scathing of Facebook and Twitter for blocking the sharing of the Post's revelations. He wrote, imagine if these two giants united with Google to declare henceforth we will ban all content that's critical of President Trump and or the Republican Party, but will actively promote criticism of Joe Biden and the Democrats, unquote. Well, of course, the opposite's happened. Not a criticism of Biden, but open slather on Trump. As Chris Mitchell wrote, free speech cannot just be for people you agree with. We now have fact-checking by Facebook. Writes Greenwald, what makes Mark Zuckerberg's company competent to fact-check the work of other journalists? Why did Facebook block none of the endless orgy of Russiagate conspiracy? Remember, all to damage Donald Trump. Make no mistake, everything that Trump says about fake news media is true. Again, Chris Mitchell, I quote, why do journalists of the left who are happy to publish unsourced and unverified allegations that Trump was in league with the Russians now want infinite checking of allegations damaging to Biden? And then, as Corey Bernardi indicated last night, people as old as 120 years of age had cast ballots in the 2020 election. When critics assert that Biden's comeback was driven by the late counting of hundreds of thousands of mail-in votes, some in quote-unquote clusters, all for Biden, and not a single vote for Trump, and mostly in key swing states, the Biden apologists everywhere say, where's the evidence? When these mail-in votes transform the results, I would say the evidence is common sense. Is it true that on the morning after voting day, that's a week ago, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., 140,000 votes appeared in Wisconsin for Biden? 3 a.m. to 4:30 a.m., 200,000 votes found in Michigan for Biden. 3:30 a.m. to 5 a.m., 1 million votes in Pennsylvania for Biden. Aren't American voters entitled to an explanation? Then consider this. Are we now seriously meant to believe that the Biden, who less than a week ago referred to half of America as chumps and ugly people, is the same Joe Biden who refused to denounce Antifa, the same Joe Biden who refused to denounce the Antifa and Black Lives Matter rioters, looters and arsonists, who actually passed, Biden did, Antifa off as just an idea? Is this Biden now, quote, the unifier in chief, as a front page headline today suggests? Is this the same Joe Biden who, in a case of reverse extortion, admitted by him on video, threatened to withhold a $1 billion loan guarantee to Ukraine unless they fired the prosecutor and took the heat off his son in their investigation of Burisma? The same Joe Biden featured in recent weeks on both his son's laptop and revealed in Tony Bobulinski's separate trove of emails, texts and audio files as the big guy of a multi-million-dollar shakedown? Or are we talking about a different Joe Biden? It's extraordinary to believe that for a bloke who showed during the campaign that sometimes he didn't know where he was or against whom he was competing, he's gained 75 million votes. When everywhere else in the Senate, the House of Representatives, and in the governorships of the 50 states, Trump and his team prevailed. Perhaps only history will record how someone like Joe Biden, almost bottom of his class at law school, found cheating in his exams, in a previous attempt at the presidency, was found to have lifted the speeches of previously notable Democratic and Labor Party figures, and yet now they joke about this. They joke about it. Are you kidding me? Perhaps only history will be able to record how such a man became president. And the vice president could be a woman who contested the Democratic primaries. She was so unwanted by the party, she pulled out before the primaries started. She didn't get past December last year. She could be president and leader of the free world. Spare me. I repeat what I said last night. Despite the attempted brainwashing of the electorate by Hollywood, the Googles, the Facebooks and the Twitters, and almost all of the media, 71+ million Americans have refused to slump, defeated and silenced. And Donald Trump won't either. He's still president for 71 days. As they say, watch this space. What are your thoughts? Email me at alan@skynews.com.au or text, there it is on the screen, 0414 008 848. And remember, you can listen live on the iHeart Radio app.